Hey comic book fans, if you love comics as much as I do, you're going to subscribe to my channel. I review comics for Comic Crusaders. I also have my own franchises, Adolescent Radioactive Samurai Platypi and Carl Vincent Vampire Hunter. They're available on Comics Central, Indie Planet, and Comixology. Check them out. Stay tuned to this broadcast for more information. Also, like the Facebook pages for each franchise. Check out my Patreon site for some neat original artwork and shows that you won't find on YouTube. Hey comic book fans, I'm Kevin Given once again. It's Comics Let's Talk. Don't forget to check out my reviews on Comics for Sinners as well as Comic Crusaders websites. And today we're going to pay tribute to the late, great actor Rutger Hauer.
We want him alive! Get a bomb!
Born January 23rd, 1944. Passed away just the other day, July 19th on 2019. He was a Dutch actor, writer, and environmentalist. In 1999, he was named the best Dutch actor of the century by the Dutch public. Hauer's career began in 1969 with the title role in the Dutch television series Floris, and surged with his leading role in Turkish Delight from 1973, which in 1999 was named the best Dutch film of the century. After gaining international recognition with the film Soldier of Orange in 1977, he moved into American films such as Nighthawks in 1981 and his tour de force Blade Runner 1982. Starring in the latter as self-aware android Roy Batty, his performance in Blade Runner brought him roles in films such as The Osterman Weekend, Lady Hawk, The Hitcher, Escape from Sobibor, for which he won the 1987 Golden Globe Award for Best Supporting Actor in the Television Film category, Blind Fury from 1989, The Blood of Heroes, also from 1999, and Wedlock, which came out in 1991. Now, I want to stress we're not going to look at his entire body of work. Since this is a comic book related show, we're going to look at his work in comic book related movies and films, comics that were adapted into films that he starred in, plus films that he starred in that were adapted into comic books and have sources in the world of comic books. Also films that could have been adapted, but actually we're not. We're not going to look at his work in straight DVD videos, unless they were comic book related, or some of his B-grade stuff. We won't look at all that because there's such a body of work, you don't have time. But from the 1990s on, Hauer moved into low-budget films and supporting roles in major films such as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, 1992, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind from 2002, Batman Begins in 2005, and The Right from 2011. He also made a return to Dutch cinema and won the Rembrandt Award for Best Actor for his lead role in the Heineken kidnapping. Outside of acting, he founded the Rutger Hauer Starfish Association, an AIDS awareness organization. He was made a Knight in the Order of the Netherlands Lion in 2013. Hauer was born in Breckelen on 23rd January 1944, while the Netherlands was under German occupation during World War II. He stated in a 1981 interview, "I was born in the middle of the war, and I think for that reason I have deep roots in pacifism. Violence frightens me." His parents were Tinna and Arend Hauer, both actors who operated an acting school in nearby Amsterdam. Hauer attended a Rudolf Steiner school as his parents wanted him to develop his creativity. At the age of 15, he left school to join the Dutch Merchant Navy. He spent a year traveling the world aboard a freighter, but was unable to become a captain due to his color blindness. Returning home, he worked odd jobs while finishing his high school diploma at night. He then entered the Academy for Theater and Dance in Amsterdam for acting classes, but soon dropped out to join the Royal Netherlands Army. He received training as a combat medic, but left the service after a few months as he opposed the use of deadly weapons. He subsequently returned to acting school and graduated in 1967. Hauer had his first acting role at the age of 11 as Yearsakes in the play Ajax. After graduating from the Academy of Theater and Dance, he became a stage actor with the tunnel group Noorder Campaign. Hauer made his screen debut in 1969 when Paul Verhoeven cast him as the lead role of the television series Floris, a Dutch medieval action drama. The role made him famous in his native country, and Hauer reprised the role for the 1975 German remake Floris von Rosamund. Hauer's career changed course when Verhoeven cast him in Turkish Delight. The film found box office favor abroad and at home, and Hauer looked to appear in more international films. Within 2 years, Hauer made his English-language debut in the British film The Wilby Conspiracy from 1975. In South Africa, the film was an action drama with a focus on apartheid. Hauer's supporting role, however, was barely noticed in Hollywood when he returned to Dutch films for several years. During this period, he made Katie Tipple in 1975 and worked again with Verhoeven on Soldier of Orange, 1977, and Spetters from 1980. Hauer made his American debut in the Sylvester Stallone film Nighthawks as a psychopathic and cold-blooded terrorist named Wolfgar. Unafraid of sinister roles, he portrayed Albert Speer in the 1982 American Broadcasting Company production Inside the Third Reich. The same year, Hauer appeared in arguably his most famous and acclaimed role as the eccentric and violent but sympathetic anti-hero Roy Batty in Ridley Scott's 1982 science fiction thriller Blade Runner.
I like the development of the character that is underneath all this. There's a heart in this guy, and I like that.
Hauer wrote some of the speech himself the night before shooting, cutting away swathes of the original script before adding the speech's poignant final line. He went on to play the adventurer, according to Teresa Russell in Eureka, the investigative reporter opposite John Hurt in The Osterman Weekend, the hardened Lanskent mercenary Martin in Flesh and Blood from 1985, and the knight paired with Michelle Pfeiffer in Lady Hawk. Now let's look at Hauer's work in films that were either inspired by comic books or adapted into the medium. Again, we are using Wikipedia as well as the website Vanilla Spanking. Hauer's very first television role was adapted into comic book format. It was 1969's Flores, a lighthearted adventure series starring the young Rutger Hauer as the title character. He's a cross between Sir Lancelot and Robin Hood, a knight-errant who has been robbed of his birthright. Hauer is the biggest star to emerge out of the show, but for our purposes, he is among the least important parts of it. Flores was made in 1969. At the time, most European television companies were switching over to color. It was one of the last Dutch drama series to be shot in black and white. And what's more, it was remade in German 6 years later, for more or less the same scripts, but now in color. Hauer again played Flores, but the rest of the parts were recast. Then we come up to 1973's Rumpelstiltskin. Hauer plays the king, from the Netherlands production with director Harry Kummel. It's a fairy tale popularized associated with Germany, where he's known as Rumpelstiltskin. The tale was one collected by the Brothers Grimm in the 1812 edition of Children's and Household Tales. In the world of comic books, Rumpelstiltskin appears in issue 4 of The Muppet Show that was a part of the Treasure of Peg-Leg Wilson arc. The tale is adapted in the 4th issue of Xenoscope series Grimm Fairy Tales, but it's given an alternative, more tragic ending. The priest from the Dark Horse series The Goon is actually Rumpelstiltskin, having escaped from the hell he was cast into. He attempts to wrestle control of the town away from the Goon. Then we come up to 1982, and the film role he is best known for, Blade Runner, a neo-noir science fiction film directed by Ridley Scott and written by Hampton Fancher and David Peoples, starring Harrison Ford, Rutger Hauer, and Sean Young. It's loosely based on Philip K. Dick's novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep from 1968. The film is set in a dystopian future of Los Angeles in 2019, in which synthetic humans known as replicants are bioengineered by the powerful Tyrell Corporation to work on off-world colonies. When a fugitive group of Nexus 6 replicants led by Roy Batty escapes back to Earth, burnt-out cop Rick Deckard, played by Harrison Ford, reluctantly agrees to hunt them down.
I don't see the villain so much. I think Harrison is the villain. I think my idea of a villain is somebody who wants to do some, nasty, bad things. And Harrison's character is finds his motivation that he has to kill 5 replicants, which we are sort of dangerous. Mm-hmm. And they say they sort of found a spaceship and people got killed, but you never see that happen in the film. It's just one of the stories they give you that they are a bit dangerous.
Blade Runner initially underperformed in North American theaters and polarized critics. Some praised its thematic complexity and visuals, while others were displeased with its slow pacing and lack of action. It later became an acclaimed cult film, regarded as one of the best all-time science fiction films ever made. Hailed for its production design depicting a retrofitted future, Blade Runner is a leading example of neo-noir cinema. The soundtrack, composed by Vangelis, was nominated in 1982 for a BAFTA and a Golden Globe as Best Original Score. The film has influenced many science fiction films, video games, anime, and television series. It brought the work of Philip K. Dick to the attention of Hollywood, and several later big-budget films were based on his work.
Katie Haber gave me a call and said, Ridley wants you to meet Philip Dick, and can he come down and see it?
And I knew what I had, he'd love. So I took him down to see Rushes one day in Santa Monica.
And Katie had said, just tie together 10 minutes of your better shots and run them. So the Vangelis music started to play, the seats started to rumble, and we ran through the thing, the lights came back up. Philip Dick turned around and looked right through the back of my head, and he said, how is this possible? How did this happen? It's like you guys hardwired my brain. That's what I saw when I was writing that story. I don't understand this. How can this happen?
And the compliment came when he said, and by the way, could you run that reel for me again? I want to see it once more.
Very hard to tell where the difference is between you and the character because, you know, we melt. What I do as an actor, career-wise, I'm trying to, you know, I create a little dollhouse with characters, and I want to try and get deeper, get different, get better, and I hope it shines through.
One role that was not difficult to cast was Rutger Hauer as Roy Batty, the violent yet thoughtful leader of the replicants. Scott cast Hauer without having met him, based solely on Hauer's performances in Paul Verhoeven's movies Scott had seen, Katie Tipple, Soldier of Orange, and Turkish Delight. Philip K. Dick himself regarded Hauer's portrayal of Batty as cold, arrogant, flawless, the perfect Batty. Of the many films Hauer has made, Blade Runner is his favorite, as he explained in a live chat in 2001. Blade Runner needs no explanation, it just is all of the best. There is nothing like it. Part of a real masterpiece, it's changed the world's thinking, is awesome. Hauer rewrote his character's Tears and Rain speech himself and presented the words to Scott on set prior to filming. The dying replicant Roy Batty delivers the lines to Rick Deckard, whose life Batty has just saved, despite the fact that Deckard was sent to terminate him. The scene occurs during a heavy downpour of rain, moments before Batty's own death. Reflecting on his experiences and imminent mortality, he says, "I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears and rain. Time to die." In the documentary Dangerous Days, Making Blade Runner, Hauer, directly Ridley Scott, and screenwriter David Peoples confirmed that Hauer significantly modified the Tears in Rain speech. In an interview with Dan Jolin, Hauer said that these final lines showed that Batty wanted to make his mark on existence. The replicant of the final scene, by dying, shows Deckard what a real man is made of. Then we come up to 1985's Lady Hawk, an American medieval fantasy film directed and produced by Richard Donner, and starring Matthew Broderick, Rutger Hauer, and Michelle Pfeiffer. The story is about a young thief who willingly gets involved with a warrior and his lady that are hunted by the Bishop of Aquila. As he comes to know about the couple's past in secret, he finds himself determined to help them overcome the bishop's oppressions. Rutger Hauer is Etienne of Navarre, the former captain of the Guard of Aquila, who, with Isabeau, is hunted by the bishop. It was Verhoeven's first English-language film. In 1997, Rutger Hauer did the film Bleeders, which was also known as Hemoglobin, a Canadian horror film directed by Peter Svatek. It was based upon H.P. Lovecraft's story The Lurking Fear. It premiered at the Fantastic Film Festival Lund in Sweden on September 14, 1997, and was released direct-to-video for the following year. It is the last original script written by Dan O'Bannon, produced during his lifetime. The Lurking Fear, a 2016 comic book adaptation, came out. John and Kathleen Strauss are a couple attempting to uncover the secret to John's rare blood disease. They encounter Dr. Marlowe, who is intrigued by the case. They are unaware that the island which they are about to set foot upon is home to the Von Damme family, mutant-like creatures who have become deformed and bloodthirsty from centuries of inbreeding. Their mutation began with the relative Eva Von Damme, who had a twincest relationship with her twin brother. Also, they are fully functioning hermaphrodites, capable of reproducing within themselves. They need to survive on dead or alive human flesh. Rutger Hauer played Dr. Marlowe. 1992 brings us the release of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie, an American comedy horror film directed by Fran Rubel Kusi and starring Christy Swanson, Donald Sutherland, Paul Rubens, Rutger Hauer, Luke Perry, and Hilary Swank. It follows a Valley Girl cheerleader named Buffy who learns that it is her fate to hunt vampires. It was a moderate success at the box office, but received mixed reception from critics. The film was taken in a different direction from the one its writer Joss Whedon intended, and 5 years later, he created the darker and acclaimed TV series of the same name. The series premiered on March 10, 1997 on the WB and concluded on May 20, 2003 on UPN. Dark Horse Comics has adapted Buffy into a comic book series. In the film version, Rutger Hauer plays Lothos. 1998 brought us Merlin, the television miniseries which originally aired on NBC that retells the legend of King Arthur from the perspective of the wizard Merlin. Sam Neill stars in the title role in a story that covers not only the rise and fall of Camelot, but also the phase in the legendary history of Britain that precedes it. The film deviates from the more traditional versions of the legend, notably by including new characters such as Queen Mab and by keeping Merlin through the whole reign of King Arthur over Britain, whereas in older versions Merlin left earlier on in the king's reign. Hauer plays King Vortigern in 2 episodes. Merlin, of course, has been adapted many times in various comic books and comic book companies based on the Arthurian legend. In 2000, we get The 10th Kingdom, an American fairy tale fantasy miniseries written by Simon Moore and Britain's Carnival Films, Germany's Babelsberg Film, and Fernsen, also the USA Hallmark's Entertainment. It depicts the adventures of a young woman and her father after they are transported from New York City through a magical mirror into a parallel world of fairy tales. Hauer played Huntsman in 7 episodes. 2001 brought us Alias, an American action television series created by J.J. Abrams that was broadcast on ABC for 5 seasons from September 30th, 2001 to May 22nd, 2006. It starred Jennifer Garner as Sidney Bristow, a double agent for the Central Intelligence Agency, posing as an operative for ST6, a worldwide criminal and espionage organization. The show also received numerous awards and nominations. Hauer played Anthony Geiger in the episode Phase 1. Coming up on 2001, we get Smallville, an American television series developed by writer-producers Alfred Goh and Miles Millar, based on the DC Comics character Superman, created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. The series, initially broadcast by the WB, premiered on October 16, 2001. After Smallville's 5th season, the WB and UPN merged to form the CW, the series' later United States broadcaster. Smallville, which ended its 10th and final season on May 13, 2011, follows Clark Kent, Tom Welling, in the fictional town of Smallville, Kansas, where he becomes known as Superman. Rutger Hauer played Morgan Edge on a couple episodes. Morgan Edge is a fictional character in DC Comics. Originally, Edge was a supporting character, a relatively sympathetic media mogul who acquired the Daily Planet and employed Clark Kent as a television journalist for his WGBS TV network. After the Crisis on Infinite Earths series led to a wholesale revision of the DC universe, the character was revised as a supervillain, leader of the mob known as Intergang and one of Superman's enemies. Morgan Edge first appeared in Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen number 133 and was created by Jack Kirby. Kirby based his physical appearance on actor Kevin McCarthy, while his personality was inspired by television executive James T. Aubrey. According to Kirby's production assistant Mark Evener, Kirby wanted to explore the theme of organized crime gaining a foothold in corporate America, particularly a giant media conglomerate. Given the shady background of the company that acquired Warner Brothers and DC, it was something of an inside joke. However, under prodding from editorial staff who preferred Edge to be an ongoing supporting character rather than a villain who would ultimately have to be brought to justice and thus written out of the series, the Morgan Edge connection to Intergang was revealed to be an imposter. Then we come up to the 2004 version of Salem's Lot, an American 2-part television miniseries which first aired on TNT June 20th and ended its run on June 21st, 2004. It is the second television adaptation of Stephen King's 1975 vampire novel of the same name. The first version was made in 1979. Although the novel and original miniseries were both set in the 1970s, this version updates the story to take place in the 2000s. The story is still set in a small Maine town. The cast includes Rob Lowe as Ben Mears, Samantha Mathis as Susan Norton, Rutger Hauer as Kurt Barlow, Donald Sutherland as Richard Straker, Andrew Brough as Matt Burke, and James Cromwell as Father Callahan. In his memoir, Love Life, Rob Lowe stated that Rutger Hauer showed up on set and did not know any of his lines. Lowe said, "I once starred in a big miniseries that culminated with the villain giving a 2-page monologue trying to goad me into killing him. The actor playing the bad guy wanted to ad-lib his own version of the movie-ending speech. Although he was playing a vampire, he went into a soliloquy about being a cowboy. The director was not impressed. After a very tense negotiation, the actor was forced to can his self-penned opus and stick to the original script. There was only one problem. He hadn't bothered to learn it." Lowe went on to state that cue cards were placed next to his head and Hauer read the lines to him. We come up to 2005 and Sin City, also known as Frank Miller's Sin City, an American neo-noir crime anthology film written, produced, and directed by Robert Rodriguez and Frank Miller. It's based on Miller's graphic novel of the same name. Much of the film is based on the first, third, and fourth books in Miller's original comics series. The Hard Goodbye is about a man who embarks on a brutal rampage in search of his one-time sweetheart's killer, killing anyone, even the police, that gets in his way of finding and killing her murderer. The Big Fat Kill focuses on an everyman getting caught in a street war between a group of prostitutes and a group of mercenaries, the police and the mob. That Yellow Bastard follows an aging police officer who protects a young woman from a grotesquely disfigured serial killer. The intro and outro of the film are based on the short story The Customer Is Always Right, which is collected in Booze, Broads, and Bullets. the sixth book in the comic series. Rutger Hauer plays Cardinal Rourke in the film. Coming up on 2005, we get Batman Begins, a superhero film based on the DC Comics character Batman, directed by Christopher Nolan and written by Nolan and David S. Goyer. It stars Christian Bale, Michael Caine, Liam Neeson, Katie Holmes, Gary Oldman, Cillian Murphy, Tom Wilkinson, Rutger Hauer, Ken Watanabe, and Morgan Freeman. The film reboots the Batman film series, telling the origin story of Bruce Wayne from the death of his parents to his journey to become Batman and his fight to stop Ra's al Ghul and the Scarecrow from plunging Gotham City into chaos. Following the poor reception of Batman and Robin in 1997, a series of unsuccessful attempts were made to resurrect Batman on the big screen, which put the Batman film series on hold for nearly 8 years. Then, in early 2003, Nolan and Goyer began work on Batman Begins, aiming for a darker, more realistic tone compared to the previous films. Comic book storylines such as The Man Who Falls, Batman Year One, and Batman The Long Halloween served as inspiration. Batman Begins opened on January 17, 2005 in the United States and Canada in 3,858 theaters, grossing over $48 million in its opening weekend in North America, eventually grossing over $374 million worldwide. Rutger Hauer played William Earl, the CEO of Wayne Enterprises, who takes the company public in Bruce's long-term absence. In 2005, we get Dracula 3 Legacy, a horror film and the sequel to Dracula 2000 and Dracula 2 Ascension. The film was directed by Patrick Lussier and stars Jason Scott Lee, Jason London, Roy Scheider, and Diane Neal. It was released direct-to-video on July 12, 2005. The role of Dracula is played by Rutger Hauer, following Gerard Butler in Dracula 2000 and Stephen Billington in Dracula 2 Ascension. 2012, we get Metal Hurlant Chronicles, an English-language Franco-Belgian television science fiction anthology series based on the popular comics anthology magazine Metal Hurlant, known in the United States as Heavy Metal and in Germany as Schwermetall. Each episode is a self-contained story taking place on a different planet with a different cast, and the episodes are linked together only by the idea that an asteroid, the Metal Hurlant, passes the planet in question during the events of the story. The show's premise originated with Guillaume Lebrano, who put together a self-financed pilot to pitch the show, which was broadcast as the series' third episode. Lebrano and Justin Velo produced the show through their company WE Productions. It was largely filmed in Bucharest, Romania. The series premiered on French television 27 October 2012. Sony Pictures Television brought the rights, and it debuted on Sci-Fi in 2014. Its viewership was slightly below normal for a pilot in its time slot, and then steadily declined. Its critical reception has been tepid from the start. Generally, the series is described as having decent visual effects, but being poorly written and produced with inconsistent acting. Also in 2012, Dracula 3D, as we mentioned before, vampire horror film co-written and directed by Dario Argento and starring Thomas Kretschmann, Rutger Hauer, Marta Gostini, and Unax Galdi, an Italian-Spanish-French co-production. The film is Argento's first 3D film. Kretschmann took the role of Dracula. He later played Abraham Van Helsing in the Budapest-shot television series Dracula. Dracula received generally negative reviews, currently holding an 11% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The consensus states schlocky and gross, but far from bad enough to be good. Argento's Dracula 3D bites and sucks in all the wrong ways. On Metacritic, the film has a 23 out of 100 rating, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. Rutger Hauer, who had previously played the Count himself, plays Abraham Van Helsing here. And we come up to more vampires. In 2008, we get True Blood, an American dark fantasy television series produced and directed by Alan Ball. It was based on the Southern Vampire Mysteries, a series of novels by Charlaine Harris. The series revolves around Suki Stackhouse, Anna Paquin, a half-human, half-fairy waitress living in the rural town of Bontemps, Louisiana. 2 years after the invention of a synthetic blood branded True Blood, vampires are able to come out of the coffin and allow their presence to be known to mankind. Now they are struggling for equal rights and assimilation, while anti-vampire organizations begin to gain power. Suki's world is turned upside down when she falls in love with the 173-year-old vampire Bill Compton, played by Stephen Moyer. For the first time, she must navigate the trials and terrors of intimacy and relationships. The show was broadcast on the premium cable network HBO in the United States and was produced by HBO in association with Ball's production company, Your Face Goes Here Entertainment. It lasted until 2014, comprising 7 seasons and 80 episodes. Rutger Hauer played Neal Burgon. Then in 2017, we come up to Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, an English-language French 3D space opera film written and directed by Luc Besson and co-produced by Besson and his wife, Virginia Besson-Silla. It is based on the French science fiction comic series Valerian and Laureline, written by Pierre Christian and illustrated by Jean-Claude Mézarez. It stars Dane DeHaan as Valerian and Claire Delavigne as Laureline, with Clive Owen, Rihanna, Ethan Hawke, Herbie Hancock, Chris Wu, and Rutger Hauer in supporting roles. Besson independently crowdsourced and personally funded the film with a production budget of around $180 million. It is both the most expensive European independent film ever made. Valerian was released in the United States on 21 July 2017 by STX Films and in French by Europa Corps. Received mixed reviews from critics who criticized the plot and some of the casting, but praised the visuals. It grossed $225 million worldwide, but due to its high production and advertising costs, was considered a commercial failure following its release in the United States. In the 28th century, due to cooperation between the Earth's countries and extraterrestrial peoples, the former International Space Station has been expanded until its mass threatens to cause it to fall out of orbit. Relocated to deep space using thrusters, it becomes Alpha, a space-traveling city inhabited by millions of species from thousands of planets. Rutger Hauer played the World State Federation president. Then in 2018, we get Samson, a biblical drama film directed by Bruce McDonald and inspired by the story of Samson in the Book of Judges. The film stars Taylor James as Samson, along with Jackson Rathbone, Billy Zane, Caitlin LaHaye, Rutger Hauer, and Lindsay Wagner. Rutger Hauer plays Manoah, Samson's father. The film begins with the narrator Caleb revealing that the Hebrews have been oppressed by the cruel Philistines for not following God's covenant. And finally, a film yet to be released. 2019's A Christmas Carol, an upcoming fantasy miniseries based on the story of the same name by Charles Dickens. It is due to air in December 2019. Rutger Hauer will portray the ghost of Christmas future for the BBC. And that was our look at the career of Rutger Hauer and some of his most prominent films, either based on comic books, inspired by comic books, or are comic book related. We hope you enjoyed this program. Join us next time for another program of Comics Let's Talk. If you love comics as much as I do, you're going to subscribe to my channel. I review comics for Comic Crusaders. I also have my own franchises, Adolescent Radioactive Samurai Platypi and Carl Vincent Vampire Hunter. They're available on Comics Central, Indie Planet, and Comixology. Check them out. Stay tuned to this broadcast for more information. Also, like the Facebook pages for each franchise. Check out my Patreon site for some neat original artwork and shows that you won't find on YouTube. That's all the time we have this week for Comics Let's Talk. Join me next time when we do something different in the world of comic books. Until then, this is Kevin Gibbons saying so long and keep reading those comics.